So we have a lot of years of instruction, 20 years, 22 years, 10, 6. Awesome. And then what are some of the things you think your students need in a literacy curriculum?
Okay.
I think that with everybody on together, the feedback come off mute is going to be really hard. So we're probably going to have to just do the typing in the chat since everyone's in the same room together on the same Zoom call. There's going to be that feedback. I see somebody wrote a well-rounded literacy curriculum that builds a foundation for a love of reading. So the chat box down at the bottom of your screen, if you click that, you will be able to type in the chat. Also, for those of you that didn't see yet in the chat, I posted a link to our participation notebook. It's the tiny URL. So if you weren't able to get that, let me know. Time to learn the materials and use it before moving on. So yeah, we want to make sure our students have all the materials they need and a curriculum that is supporting their learning. Okay, let's get started. This is your Amplify Texas ELAR half-day training for K-2. So welcome. My name is Margot Buser, and I will be your facilitator today. I'm about to start my 19th year in education. And thanks, Kim. And I have been a K-6 classroom teacher, literacy specialist, instructional coach. I've taught at the university here at the University of Nevada, Reno. I have 5 amazing humans that are my children, and I am getting married in Tahoe in 28 days. So that's exciting. It's been a fun summer, and I'm really excited to be here with all of you today and get you acquainted with your new curriculum. You're gonna love it and see so much growth in your students. So I'm excited to be on this journey with you today. So we'll move on. This is our purpose statement from Amplify. Just so you know that Amplify is deeply committed to supporting teachers and creating that rigorous and engaging learning experiences for your students, inspiring them to think deeply and creatively for themselves, and then to really support the educators and the students that we all work with. So knowing that we have a curriculum with these foundations is really awesome. Okay, so our norms for technology, sounds like we're all in the same room, so we probably want to just use our chat for communication and staying muted. Please start your video camera if that is, if you have that camera on your screen, so that we can simulate that in-person learning that is so impactful for all of us. So if your video does freeze, go ahead and stop it, and then answer in the chat when prompted. That would be awesome. So we really look forward to your participation today. If you do need to take care of your bio needs, go ahead and do that. We will have a break, but okay, take care of yourself. Make sure that whatever is learned here leaves here. If you do have questions, since there's not very many of us, you can just pop those in in the chat box, and then I can answer them for you. Okay, this is really important. Today you are going to be accessing your materials at my.amplify.com/home. And then with this username, Amplify Texas Teacher at tryamplify.net, with the password capital A Amplify, capital N number, and then the digit 1. I will pop over to the other screen to show you how to log in, but I'm going to give you a little bit of time to get all this written down. So if you could give me a thumbs up, turning your cameras on and giving me a thumbs up, then I'll know you're ready for me to pop over to that other screen to show you how to log in, because that seems to be really helpful for everyone. Okay, awesome. Nora, Kim, are you ready? And then I'll come back to this screen also, but. So the URL that we're going to is my.amplify.com/home. And then that username is Amplify Texas Teacher at tryamplify.net. And then our password, capital A Amplify number 1. And you know what, I'm gonna type that into the chat too. And then after that, I'll go ahead and pop over, share my other screen to show you how to do it. Okay, so this information is in the chat. So if you need it again, you can reference there. I'm going to go ahead and share the screen at myamplify.com/home. So once you are at myamplify.com/home, you'll click the login with Amplify. And then you will type in that username, Amplify Texas. Oops, do that a lot. So check your spelling. I hit that G key. Amplify Texas Teacher at tryamplify.net. And then our password is Amplify with a capital A, a capital N for the word number, and then the digit number 1. And we click login, and hopefully I didn't make any typos. Okay. And then you will click your grade level. I'm just going to click first grade. Andrina, website isn't loading for us. Maybe give it a little bit of time to load. Sometimes when everybody's on that same Wi-Fi, it might be a little bit slow. Is everybody having trouble with it, or just you're good? Okay. At myamplify.com/home. We're not able to log into that. Is Eric there? I don't know if he can help us. Is there a tech person there that can, is there anyone in the room? I don't know why it wouldn't be. Oh, okay. But you're obviously online with me, so that's working. It's not working on anyone's computer. Let me see if I can phone a friend. Can somebody tell me what firewall issue? Oh. Yeah, okay. I just sent a message so we can see if we're able to figure that out, or maybe we can find Eric. He's the only person I know as that contact for that. The morning session didn't seem to have a problem. You're all the same plate, the same location? Then you don't know. Well, why don't we try, let's try this. This is the link that we're going to actually use today anyway. So I'm going to copy that into the chat and see if that works. So try clicking onto this link. Amplify.com/Texas-THL 2021 and see if that link works better. So right now, if we were able to get to this site, we would be clicking this link to get us to the Texas materials that are available to you right now. Did you get the link that I just shared, and Andrina? Yeah, okay. Is this link working for everyone? Yeah, thumbs up, okay. Okay, perfect. All right. Well, that will work. Okay. Okay, so when we get here, you are going to use those demo login credentials to get you into here, which is great. And then you will choose your grade level on the side here. And then for the first part of our day, we'll be in the skills, so English daily instruction skills. And then that skills 1 teacher guide is what you'll click on. And it will open up and you'll be able to look through that. We are going to get to that in just a minute. I just wanted to make sure everybody's able to log in there to see your Texas Amplify materials. If you could pop in the chat for me if anyone is still having trouble logging in and getting to their teacher guide. Okay, looks like everyone's good now. Okay. All right, are we ready, everyone? Thumbs down on ready. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thumbs up on ready. Okay. Yay. All right. Oh, it will help if I go back to the to the slide deck. And here we go. Okay, you see the slide deck again? Okay, we should be back to the slide deck. Can everybody see that? Okay. All right. So our objectives for today is to identify those look-fors in both our skills and knowledge lesson videos that you'll get to see, and then also to be able to list 2 to 3 Amplify Texas skills and knowledge routines that are new to your teaching practice. Just help get everybody acquainted with this new curriculum so you'll be ready to roll when you start planning your first unit. Okay, so the first part of our day together, we're going to be understanding our skills strand. And then the second portion of our afternoon will be devoted to our knowledge strand. So we'll be taking that deeper dive into writing and assessments in both strands. So we'll have a break at about, oh, not 10:30, that was this morning. we'll have a break this afternoon. 12, about 2:30 this afternoon. And then we will be moving right along. Okay, so our 2-strand approach, as you all, I'm sure, are aware, students, it is a clear indicator of reading. The reading proficiency by the end of 3rd grade is our clear indicator for our high school graduation and college success. And so many of our students are not reaching this goal by the end of 3rd grade. And it's about 67% nationally aren't. And then about 80% of those children are from our lower income families. And so this curriculum was designed to ensure that all of our students are reading by the end of grade 3. So we're going to look at how Amplify Texas takes that 2-strand approach in our K-2 curriculum. So what is our 2-strand approach? This is when we know that reading is a combination of the ability to decode and sound out our words and comprehend and understand what those words mean. So in order to avoid that cognitive overload for our younger students, Amplify Texas skills strand is designed to teach students to decode, while the knowledge strand builds students' comprehension ability. And so we are going to see today throughout our sessions how each of these strands in detail help support our students to become proficient readers. So by teaching them to decode and comprehend the text. Also, there's a lot more information about the two-strand approach in the appendix of your Unit 1 teacher guide. Goes into a lot of detail in that. Maybe some of you have seen Scarborough's rope before. This is just an example of all of the components to being a successful reader, that we need to have word recognition to actually read the text, and have the background knowledge necessary to make meaning of what our students, for our students to make meaning of what they've read. So this represents all those components that go into word recognition and comprehension. And these are all taught throughout the Amplify Texas. So we have our two-strand approach. We have 60 minutes for our skills strand a day and 60 minutes in our knowledge strand a day. You can see an example of a weekly schedule where this teacher taught the skills strand first and then went right into the knowledge strand after, but it doesn't matter which order you teach them in, and they don't have to be back to back. When I taught Amplify, I had a recess in between teaching my skills strand and then my knowledge strand. So that's up to how your planning of your daily schedule goes. There's also Amplify Texas has the yearly pacing guide, and this shows you when each unit of instruction happens. So we have the knowledge unit 1 is taught during the first 3 weeks of school. And then the skills unit 1 is taught in the first 7 weeks of school. So you'll notice that in week 8, you start teaching the knowledge 3, and then you start teaching skills 2. So our knowledge and skills units have different numbers of days. So you will not be switching units at the same time. So that's just important to know. Are there any questions so far about our pacing guides or anything? Okay. So that our two-strand approach brings us into our first strand, which is our skills. And we're going to look at your skills unit 1 teacher guide, the one that we just pulled up. And so just know that this is a brief overview of your teacher guide right now, and then we're going to kind of dive into this teacher guide in more detail throughout our afternoon together. So taking a look at that manual, I'm going to give you all 3 minutes to go back into into your tab that you opened up your Unit 1 teacher guide for you to look through and find those table of contents, your unit introduction, your lesson 1 overview, pausing points, and teacher resources. Does anybody would you like me to pop back over to the other screen so I can show you that? Okay. So if you remember, we were here with the Texas and we scrolled down, choose your grade level, open up that English daily instruction skills component, and then you click on teacher guide. I'm in grade 1 just because it's in the middle. They look the same. And so it'll start on the cover of what your teacher guide looks like. And then as you click through your teacher guide, you will come to your table of contents, which will help you find that unit introduction, lesson overview, pausing points, and teacher resources. And as we scroll down, we can see all those the lesson review overviews in our content there, which gives us a lot of information. And as we scroll, then you get to your grade 1 or whatever grade kinder or first or second introduction, which gives you lots of information. And we continue scrolling. And you will get to, we're not obviously I'm going too fast for anybody to read it. We're just kind of, for those of you who weren't able to pull it up, I wanted you to be able to see what we have here. So we have our notes for our unit 1, the tricky spelling. So all the information that you need to know for what you're about to teach, including assessments. And then here's that pausing point that we were talking about, and then those teacher resources. So I'm going to pop back over to our other screen. Just so you can see, like scrolling through, you can see those components there are there for us. And we'll have more time to look through each of them, and I'm going to be explaining them. Just wanted you to kind of see a little bit where you could find those. Okay, so that first section that we looked at was our contents. And this has more than just page numbers, as you may have noticed. It also has the summary of the lesson and the time that you are going to, the amount of time that you're going to need for each of those lesson components. So that 35 minutes for foundational skills, 35 minutes for reading skills. Here it's 25 and 25. So today and this afternoon, we're going to be using the terms lesson components and lesson segments. So components are those larger components, the foundational skills and reading. And then our lesson segments are those smaller segments of each activity that the children are going to be doing that you'll be instructing. So warm up, pop out, chaining, introduce tricky word. And then for reading, our the lesson component reading, our lesson segments are introduce the story and then read the bike ride. So it's also, I want you to know that in unit 1, there is the introduction for all of Amplify Texas, as well as the introduction for just the unit, but your follow-up units are just introductions for the unit itself. So the unit 1 is the only one that gives you that Amplify Texas program overview as well. So this introduction gives you the overview of the skills strand with descriptions of the materials you're going to use, the components, and then highlighting those key unit lesson features that you'll need to know about. And so this unit introduction is really valuable for your planning time, and you'll also find that summary of the specific skills that you'll cover in the unit. And then, so it will really help you prepare for those units. We'll be looking deeper into those as we go along this afternoon as well. Is everybody doing okay right now? Are there any questions that you have? Okay. So each lesson begins with a lesson overview, and you'll find that our primary focus objective of the lesson, as well as our formative assessment. So you can see primary focus of lesson right here, and then that formative assessment. And you're going to zoom in on those. So the primary focus is our main purpose for each activity and the standards that are going to be covered. And then our formative assessments are used to determine how our students are working towards mastery of our primary focus objective. So during the entire course of the unit, you will be working towards that primary focus objectives and then formally assessing on several different occasions. You'll see throughout each lesson how you're going to be assessing your students. So you have a good idea of each individual's progress towards the end of the unit. So also in our lesson overview is our lesson at a glance and our advanced preparation. And so at the top here, we have our lesson at a glance. and that outlines all of our activities for each of our lesson components, and the time frame we're going to need, how we're going to group them, and the materials that we need to implement that lesson for engagement of our students and things like that. And then, of course, we have our advanced preparation, and this just summarizes all the resources and information that you need as the teacher to prepare prior to the lesson. So throughout our afternoon, we're going to be talking about those lesson components, which are on this page: language, foundation skills, reading, take-home materials. And then we'll also have those lesson segments, which are introducing the reader and the story, read monitoring, and all these other lesson segments as we go along today. The next thing that you'll see in your teacher guide that when we were scrolling, was the pausing point section. Pausing points days are when when the teachers provide our students with that targeted enrichment and remediation instruction, really to help them solidify the skills that are being taught within the unit. So those students who are still working towards mastery, this is our opportunity to give them that lift, as well as pushing our students forward with the enrichment activities. So the pausing point section in the teacher guide will give you a plethora of activities for you to choose from to fill those pausing point days for each unit. So there's also our teacher resources, and you will find all the resources you need, like answer keys for the activity book pages, games, all of the forms and documents you use for monitoring and tracking your student progress. There's so many teacher resources, more than you'll ever probably use, but knowing that they're all there, and depending on what year you're in, what students you have, you might need to use some of those documents some years and not other years. So it's nice to know that these are all available both digitally and in print. Okay, so those are our components of our teacher guide, and we're going to look at how we, the design principle behind our skills strand. Before I move on to that, are there any questions about our teacher guide at this point? Okay. So our skills strand is designed to teach our students the foundational literacy skills they need to learn how to read, coding text. And so this is our literacy house, and it represents all of the foundational skills taught in our skills strand. So the basic literacy skills that we will cover will probably be a review for some of us that have been teaching for a long time, but it's always helpful to reframe our brains on what exactly we're doing here today. So our goal in teaching our students the foundational literacy skills is to move them from learning to read at the base of our house to the rooftop of reading to learn. So first, we have our supports of to move from learning to read to reading to learn. And so our first support here is our listening comprehension. And this is supporting our students with their ability to make sense of the spoken language, and then our vocabulary, using and understanding those particular words and expressing themselves. And they'll develop this skill in both the knowledge strand as well as in our skills here. So our first floor of our literacy house is our phonemic and phonological awareness. And this is the ability for our students to hear and identify, manipulate those individual phonemes that are in spoken words, and to hear and identify the larger parts of words like syllables when we get into the phonological awareness. And in our Amplify Texas materials, you'll see that those phonemic and phonological awareness is taught in kindergarten. The next level of our literacy house is our basic phonics. And this is knowing our system of letter-sound relationships that are so important, the foundation for decoding words. And this basic code is taught in kindergarten, and it does include most common letter-sound relationships. Next, we have our advanced phonics, and this is knowing our system of more complex letter sound relationships, and that's taught in first and second grade. Once our students have that strong knowledge of sound spelling relationships in their phonics, then they're able to decode words correctly and read at an appropriate pace. And so then we're developing their accuracy and fluent reading. So that is our next level. And our final level of our literacy house is engaging in understanding what they're reading independently and having that comprehension. And once our students have mastered all these skills, they are ready for reading to learn. So just kind of recapping for all of us. First, we have our students to have a solid understanding of our sounds of our letters and combinations of letters before we attach it to a spelling. So this is why our phonological and phonemic awareness is at the bottom, because we do sound first instruction before we teach letter names. And then we move on to mastering those basic phonics, which are like our single sound spelling correspondence, such as sound is spelled with an M. And then we move on to our advanced phonics, which is our sound spelling patterns like is spelled with a PH. So that more advanced complex phonics understanding. And then, of course, once our students master the code of those basic and advanced phonics, we will they'll be able to read text accurately and fluently. And obviously, we want them to increase their automaticity. And so that's what the students will focus on here with having that automaticity with the code so that they will be more fluent as they read. Then finally, we have that comprehension. We want our students to comprehend what they read independently. So they will use these comprehension vocabulary skills during your read alouds that will help them to comprehend more complex texts orally, and then that will build the foundation so they'll be able to comprehend those texts independently. So that is what we're doing as we're teaching, and that's why it is systematic and so important to follow the pacing of the lessons and doing it this way, because there is a purpose to it, right? Going from that phonemic and phonological awareness all the way up to our comprehension. Does anyone have any questions about our literacy house right now? All right, we'll keep clicking along. Okay, so that was our design principle behind why we have our skills strand. And now we're going to move into a skills lesson and you're gonna be able to watch a teacher do some components of the skills lesson and see it in practice. So you'll be able to be prepared to teach your Amplify skills when you get into it. So we have our unit introduction with all that great information to help you prepare. So you are going to take a little bit of time to read through that introduction. It says the welcome and then that unit 1 organization. You're going to read through this. Just take a little bit of time to read through that so that you can understand what she's going to be doing when we get to that. And then go ahead and pop into the chat what's something you read in the program introduction that you're excited about, and 3 important things you think students will learn in your first skills unit. So you're going to need to go back to your unit 1 teacher guide on that Texas webpage. If you could send me a message if that is something you cannot see, and I can share that screen again, and hopefully and then you can just see it from my screen. So go ahead and send me a message if you need that, because I don't know if you've been able to get on there or not. About 1 minute left to kind of wrap up, writing down what are 3 most important things students will learn in your first skills unit and something you're excited about. If you could pop that in the chat, we could go over it. That'd be great. I always try to close that out before it goes off, but I wasn't watching it. Okay, what are 3 important things students will learn in your first skills unit, or even just one, and I can read those off for us. And something you read in the program introduction that you're excited about teaching, knowing that it's in there. Digraphs, yep, absolutely. We've got those for sure. That systematic phonics instruction, the students are taught that letter sound correspondence needed to independently decode our words. And using that synthetic phonics approach, teaching students to read by blending through the word, not multiple cueing strategies, right? Like the use of pictures. That's not right. We don't do word part guessing. We use that synthetic phonics approach. And so they also, remember, are learning those least ambiguous spelling for all the single consonant sounds in kindergarten, and then moving to the more obscure. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Hopefully you got some good information out of that. And those letter sounds, yep, sound first for sure. Okay, we're going to look at our lesson components now and dive into how our lessons are structured. So this is in your training, your participation notebook, note taker. That was that tiny URL that I gave you in the beginning. Hopefully you had that pulled up. I'm going to pop it in the chat again, just for quick reference for you. So you can click on that link. But this page is page 9 in your participation notebook. If you want to pull that up on your screen, you might be able to read it a little bit better. So for the lesson, we're going to watch that primary focus objective, which is students will review the following sound spellings, and then students will hear and say the oi vowel sound at the beginning, middle, and end of a word. And then they will read and write 1-syllable words spelled with the vowel digraph OI for that oi sound. And then they will read the bag of coins with purpose and understanding and answer literal, inferential, and evaluative questions about key details in the text. They are, as you can see, aligned with our TEKS. And then we have our formative assessments that provide us that data on the individual students working towards mastery of those objectives. And they are also following those TEKS, and they'll be formatively assessed on those reading objectives and standards. So we have that lesson at a glance. And this is the document that will show you the overview of each activity your students will be completing during the lesson. The sample lesson we will be watching has our foundational skills activities to begin with. And then you'll see that the students participate in this warm-up activity here and introduction of their new sound. Then our students will move into reading the text in their student readers that contain that focus, sound, spelling, correspondence. And then finally, there are take-home practice pages for your students to take home to practice. So we're going to look at that first component of our warm-up. You'll see that we'll move across each segment of our lesson today as we move forward. So right now we're starting with our warm up and review of those vowel spellings. And so in our first component of our foundational skills lesson component. Okay, so with this warm-up exercise, these are quick reviews that help our students focus for the lesson of the day. And these warm-ups are done orally and whole group using multimodality cueing. We'll have lots of hand gestures and things like that to really help solidify the learning for our students. And but these warm-ups will be different depending on what skill we're focusing on. So you'll see several different types of warm-ups today. So we're going to just look at this segment of the lesson. And again, it is in your participation notebook, but it's zoomed in here for you. So we are, our focus here, they're reviewing our vowel spellings. And so you'll see that they're going to be using these larger letter cards and showing these spellings. So during the warm-up in your participation notebook, you will see on page 12 that these same questions are on page 12 of your participation notebook. How does this lesson component demonstrate Amplify Texas was built around systematic practice of code-related skills necessary for building automaticity? What foundational skills are our students practicing and how do we know? As well as does the teacher ensure sounds are consistently and accurately articulated, and then really paying attention to the teacher's pacing. And we'll be sharing out some of these in the chat, so be prepared for that. All right, so as you watch the video, you can take notes and watch as she presents this.
Today is an exciting day because we get to learn a new sound. We get to practice writing the sound and reading words with the sound. And I know how much you guys love to read a new chapter in our books, in our fables readers, so we'll get to do that today. But before we do that, let's review some of our sounds that we've already learned, okay? So when we see this, what is this sound, everyone? Ah. But when we add this, what does this team make? A. Very nice. Look at this one. What is this sound? It. But when we add this, what does this team make? I. Good job. All right, ready? What about this sound? But when we add this, what does it become? You. What about this? Let me see. What sound is this? But when we see this, what is this sound? E. Nice job. And what about our new sound? What is this? Ow. Very nice. And then we've also learned that this is ow, but this can say two sounds. What's the first sound this is going to make? Ooh or Catch the brain.
Okay, so hopefully you were able to write down some of those ideas that they were, we're going to look at some of those warm-ups, but in a minute also, and that she was doing that phonological and phonemic awareness and moving into the basic phonics there. Okay, so I'm going to model for you some common warm-ups that you'll see in kindergarten and first grade. Second grade teachers, you will also use some of these when you're supporting your readers who are still working towards mastery. And in that first year of implementation where your students didn't have this the year before, you're definitely going to be using some of these warm-ups just as you help your students to decode and sound out their words. So first, we do our different types of blending and segmenting. And so we have our first type of blending is blending syllables together. And then we use our arm to blend words with 3 sounds or less. And then we, our last type of blending in activities is students blend words using their fingers, and using it for words that contain 3 or 4 sounds. And then you will use, you'll see segmenting using our fingers. So blending our syllables with the word cupcake, you put your fists forward and then you open one hand and you say cup, and then the other hand cake, and then together cupcake. So cup, cake, cupcake. And remember that you want the kids to see it going from left to right. So you want to manage your directionality. So you guys see me as a mirror. I'm starting, you know, with hopefully you're seeing it the way that you would read it. But know that when you're in person, you know, you're having the kids look at you. And so it's cupcake, cupcake, so that they can read looking at you from left to right. Okay, our next blending that we do, try and make sure you guys can see my arm, is blending using our arm for this word mouse. So up here on your shoulder, you're going to say and then ow at your elbows, at your wrist, and then sweep from your shoulder, mouse. So ow, mouse for that blending. And then we're going to blend using our fingers with the example of the word big. And so remember, with that directionality, we want our kids seeing us reading from left to right. So you'll wiggle your first index finger and say b, and then middle finger I, and then ring last finger g, and then fist big. So b, I, g, big. And you're modeling this for your students, and then they'll be doing it also. And then last, we're going to be segmenting sounds. We're going to practice with the word go. So you say, you hold up your 2 fingers and you say go, and then g, o. So we'll try that again. Oops. Go, g, o. So it's really important that we move those fingers in the appropriate direction for our students to see, and directly instructing these oral language skills, blending and segmenting, because this really does underlie and parallel the reading and writing skills that we're going to be teaching our students. So they're very important. Does anyone have any questions about the blending and segmenting warm-up multimodal learning? Okay, perfect. So we're going to do a quick check and see how we're all doing with everything. So first of all, you can show me with your fingers in the video or pop in the chat your answers. First question, to segment the word cat, how many fingers would I hold up for cat? Awesome. Yes, we are going to hold up 3. Cat, cat. And then in this one, to segment the word bee, how many fingers would I hold up? Correct. 2. B, b, e. The spelling e is 2 letters but makes 1 sound. So we're going to just have 2 fingers. And then if we're going to segment the word fish, how many fingers would I hold up for the word fish? Awesome. Yes, 3, because we have ish. So that SH spelling is 2 letters, but it makes 1 sound. And then our final check for understanding, segment the word drive. How many fingers would I hold up? Segment the word drive. So segment the word drive, it's 4. So yes, DR, like a lot of times we do think of it as a blend, but it really is 2 distinct sounds. It's d, I, v, d, I. So there are 4 distinct sounds. So we do not combine D and R to make one sound in our common speech. So we say those 2 sounds together very quickly, but they are 2 distinct sounds, drive. Okay, so just a quick reminder, warm-ups are always done orally and using those multimodal cueings because we really want to support our students in focusing on the sound or sounds in our lesson. And we'll be using different forms of our warm-ups depending on what skills we're focusing on. Okay, we will be introducing now the introducing the sound. And so we're going to look at this portion now. Before we get started, so how many ways can you spell the E sound? Anybody have an idea? So no, it's not taught as a blend. It is 2 separate sounds for that DR. So yeah, how many ways can we spell the E sound? What do you think? You could show with your fingers or you could pop it in the chat. So this is how many there are. There are 8. I know, it's a lot. So we show the students each of these at some point during their learning. There are 8 ways to spell that E sound. So as we've talked about before, you know that Amplify Texas teaches those most common spellings first. So if that's the case, when you look here, these are our power bar. So you see this little line and there's the bar in the middle here, that's our power bar. And the power bar indicates how long it is, says how common of a spelling that for that sound it is. So as you can see here, this single spelling, the single letter E spelling of the long E sound is more common than the double E. So why do you think, if you could just pop in that chat, why do you think in Amplify Texas, we teach that double E spelling first? If we do normally teach the most common, but in this case, we're not. Why do you think that is? When we're doing that spiraling and things. So we don't teach the single E spelling first because that single E spelling can also be pronounced as right? So it has 2 pronunciations, so that does make it more complex. So that single E has 2 pronunciations, both and E. So so we start with that least ambiguous spelling with that the E sound, which is EE, because it's always going to say E. So I hope that makes it a little more clear. And also this just is a good example of why we do teach in the order that it's in, because everything in Amplify has a purpose and a reason behind it. So that's also always awesome. I think from a teaching perspective, that you know that the way that you're teaching it has been created with a very specific purpose. Okay, so here you'll see the Amplify Texas, we do use that systematic phonics approach. And so we are going to see the introducing the sound lesson component here. And in this lesson component, students are introduced to the sound. is the focus of the lesson. And then we'll see introducing the spelling lesson component where the students learn to spell that focus sound that they've just been introduced to. So this again shows us how we are always sound first. So during this introducing the sound and introducing the spelling portions of the lesson, you will be able to, again, go into your note taker and you'll be able to see that, and that is page 14 of your note taker. If you click over to that tab for yourself, these questions are on page 14. They're also right here. How does this lesson component demonstrate the Amplify Texas Sound First approach? What foundational skills are students practicing? How do we know? Why is correct pronunciation critical in this lesson component, and what materials do we see the teacher using? Okay, we're gonna watch her present this lesson now.
All right, but today we are going to learn a new sound. Are you ready? Open up your ears. The new sound we're going to learn, Stella, is the oi sound, as in oil. Can you say that sound with me? Oi. Oi. Let's stretch it out. Ready? Oi. Let's stretch it out vertically. Ready? Oi. Let's do it horizontally. Oi. And diagonally. Ready? Oi. Very nice. Let's say oi in a monster voice. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Oi. Let's say it in a mouse voice. Ready? All right, one time. Good job. All right, so listen. I'm going to say some words that have oi at the beginning. And when I point to you, I want you to repeat them. Ready? Oil. Oil. Oink. Oink. Oyster. Oyster. Good. All right, that was good. We heard it at the beginning. Now, where do you think we're going to hear it, Alex? In the middle. Very nice. Ready? Repeat after me. Coin. Coin. Join. Join. Point. Point. Coil. Coil. Boil. Boil. Okay, we heard it. First sound. Middle sound, Saucy. Where's it going to be now? Last. The last sound. Kiss your brain, girl. Ready? Joy. Joy. Boy. Boy. Toy. Toy. Soy. Soy. Roy. Roy. Kiss your brains, guys. You're on fire today. All right, now listen to this question, and I want you to stop and think before we raise our hand to answer. Watch my mouth. Oi. Now look at your neighbor, and you make the oi sound. Stella, look at Sullivan and make the oi sound, and look at her lips. Okay, cookies in your jar? Raise your hand if you can tell me if oi is a consonant sound or a vowel sound. Raise your hand if you want to share. Oh, you have to be on your bottom. Carter, what do you think?
Vowel.
Why do you think it's a vowel sound?
There's nothing blocking your airflow.
No, there's nothing blocking our airflow. Oi is a vowel sound. Kiss your brain, bud. I'm going to show you guys how to write the oi sound. Are you ready? Oh, let's see if you're right. Let's see. When we write the oi sound, we start right underneath the middle line. We circle left. We lift. We start on the middle line. Short line down. Lift. Dot on top. This is what sound, everybody? Oi. Watch me one more time. And if you want to say that, if you want to show me, if you want to say the handwriting starts with me, you can. We're going to start right underneath the middle line, in between the middle and the bottom. We're going to circle left. raise your hand when you find it. Carter raised his hand. Carter, what page is Oi on? Page 4. Everybody, you're on page 4. Get your green crayon out. Page 4. And we're going to activate Oi. Okay, you're going to be okay. All right, guys, what's our sample word on Oi? What's the sample word? Oil. Very nice. Where are your crayons? Oh, you put it up. Okay. All right, now that we're done, let's close up our code charts.
Okay, let's share out some of our ideas here. So please type them in the chat if you have some ideas that you wrote down. How does this lesson component demonstrate the Amplify Texas Sound First approach? What are the students doing that show that? So students are practicing correctly articulating that sound right before she attaches it. They were all participating. Yeah, they were all participating in just that sound. I got you. They were participating in just repeating that sound, and then how she had them stretch it diagonal and this way, like lots of different ways that they could practice that quite a bit before she attached the picture of the letters for them. So what foundational skill will students be practicing first? What are they practicing first? From our fabulous literacy house, what is their first literacy skill they're practicing?
Phonemic awareness.
Yes, they are practicing that phonemic and phonological awareness. And we know that because there's no print to start with, right? She's just saying like oi and then having them repeat the different words with it being in the beginning, middle, and end of the word. And so it's just that oral practice. And then there we go, phonemic awareness. And then the teacher does introduce the spelling. And so it becomes a phonics practice when she starts having them circle left, straight line down, dot on top. So, and that, you know, it's so important that we are doing that correct pronunciation, because when our students come to a word and they need to decode it, they'll know how to pronounce it and then they'll be able to decode it correctly. And then she's using those sound cards, the sound flip book, and then the student's individual code chart. And so we're going to look at those right now. So you'll see that you'll be using that vowel code flip book and those spelling cards. So here on the left-hand side is a picture of the OI spelling card, and you'll use these every time you introduce the sound spelling correspondence. And as you may have heard in the video, all the vowels are in green because when you say a vowel sound, you let the air go, so go for green. And then when we have consonants, they are in red because the airflow stops. And then we also have blue for our R controlled vowels. Those will always be in blue to identify that. And Drana, did you have a question?
It's not.
Can you tell someone else in the room and then maybe they could write it in the chat or something? I'm so sorry that feedback is so hard.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay, thank you. Okay, I have a question because when I saw the video, I noticed that the teacher uses practically teaching those little kids the different pronunciation of the same vowel. That can be confusing for the students. So if you have the combination of the letter E, you choose, I would say, a maximum of 2 sounds so that the kids have in their brain that. And then she can say, tomorrow we're going to learn other sounds according to the vowel combinations or according to the vowel and the consonant combination. To me, that can be everything in the same time can be confusing for the little kiddos.
Yeah, so correct me if I am not understanding you, but those sounds that she went over, those sounds that she went over in the beginning, those were review of sounds they had been previously taught. So they were going over those when she was holding up the letter cards in the other video of like the A and the E and all of and having the students say those sounds as she held up those cards. And then for the oi sound, she was only teaching the oi. When they were practicing, they were just practicing making that sound. And so she wasn't teaching how to spell the other ways of the oi sound, only the oi. Does that make sense? Go ahead and come off mute.
So it means that she started teaching the sounds of the letter E. You know, let's say on Monday, only just 1 E, right? Tuesday, she go with words that has 2 E, okay, and so on. So where is the letter E in the last part? The last example.
So those were 2 different lessons. Like my example of showing you all the E's was just to show how there are 8 different ways of spelling E. And that was an example of how we just see the different power bars to know those different sound spellings. This lesson is just about OI. It is not the E's. The E sound, that when she was going over that had been taught previously, not like the day before. It was taught in a previous lesson, not in the oi lesson. And it will give you that guide, because that is a huge focus of Amplify Texas, is not to have our students have that cognitive overload. So you're absolutely right. They would not be learning brand new sounds. They only learn one at a time. Were you saying something else?
Okay, I'm sorry. We're using only one computer. Okay.
Do you have anything else?
No.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Okay, perfect. We made it through without too much feedback. That was awesome. Okay, so we can see that this circle is circling our power bar below the spelling, and which shows us how common that spelling is for the sound. So OI spelled as OI is fairly common. It's taking up most of that power bar section. And so also, there is a sample word provided on every spelling card. And so the other side of our spelling card shows the focus sound in a speech bubble. And that's also right here on that code flip book as well. So sounds have the slashes. So these slashes, whenever the slashes are around the letters, that means we're saying that sound, not saying the letters. So that's important to recognize in all of in the teacher's guide. Whenever the slashes are there, that's indicating to you say the sound, not the letters. You'll also use that vowel code flip book in this lesson. And the flip book is where the teacher was taping those spelling cards after they've been introduced to the students. And you do use it throughout the year, track all the sounds and spellings that the class has learned, and you go back through and you do a lot of practicing the previously learned sounds and spellings. So it really does help our students understand like the extent to which the sounds have alternate and irregular spellings, because they can flip right through the pages to see how many spellings there are for any particular sounds. So these spelling cards and flip books are for 1st and 2nd grade. And then in kindergarten, you'll use these sound posters that you put on the wall after you teach each sound. So this is an example of what a sound poster looks like. And then the teacher, in kindergarten, you have these sound cards that you use to introduce the focus sound of the lesson. And then you tape them to the sound poster and you keep them posted throughout the year. So here's just an example of a teacher posting it onto her cabinet that you can see. So you'll also notice, it's kind of hard to tell in the picture here, in kindergarten, all of the focus sounds are written in red. And then in 1st grade is when you switch to the vowels being in green and the consonants being in red. So then you'll see that the students are using their individual code chart, and this is a consumable that you'll have, and you want to make sure that students have access to this because they do use it as a reference when they are reading and spelling independently, writing independently. So it becomes a resource for them as they activate the different sounds in their code chart. So there we go. Okay. Next, you'll see, before we move on, I want you to see the spelling trees. So you can read about how to use the spelling trees in the skills unit introduction as well. Spelling trees are used in 1st grade and 2nd grade to help students really visualize all of those spelling patterns that they're learning for a particular sound. So like I said, those spelling trees start in 1st grade, unit 5 in 1st grade, and then unit 3 in 2nd grade. So these are just some examples of how teachers have used them in their classroom, but know that there are templates in the teacher guide. So you don't have to create these. They have been created for you. You just have to make photocopies of them and things like that. So you can see too that the branches length is different, and that length of the branches is a direct reflection of the length of a power bar. So this that power bar the power bar on the sound card, the longer the branch, the more common the spelling, just like the longer the bar, the more common the spelling. And then it's suggested that you leave these trees up all year so that your students can use them as a resource as you go along through your year. So 1st grade, there are 9 spelling trees and 14 spelling trees in 2nd grade that you'll create over the course of the year. So I would recommend making them this 1st year and doing some laminating so you can reuse them next year, not having to recreate it every year. So you will see all of those there. Okay, so we're gonna do another quick check. So you can type that in the chat, or you can just say it out loud in your group there to answer it, and I can see some of your lips, or you can type it in the chat. So during instruction, would I say M or when introducing the sound to students? Yes, thank you. I saw that. I think I heard it all the way from Texas to Nevada. Okay. Yes, we would use the sound because we do sound first, right? So the students are going to practice the sound before we ever use the spelling or the letter M with them. What color is the spelling card going to be? What color? You can type it in the chat, or the red or green. Red, yes, red, because it's a consonant and red means stop, and the sound stops, doesn't keep going like a vowel. All right, which spelling would be taught first for the sound, the single S or the double S? Yeah, the single S, because that is the more common spelling for the sound than the double S. So we're going to be teaching that single S spelling for the sound. Awesome, look at that, we made it, good work. Okay, we are on to practice. And this, we are on break. I'm just going to show you these practice pages, and then next is the break. So practice, this is what the practice pages look like. They are also in your participation notebook on page 15 and 16. So we will take a quick 10-minute break, and so we will be back at it's 2:40 there. So right, yeah, 2:40. So we'll be back at 2:50. If everyone can be back at 2:50, that would be awesome. So we'll see you all back in 10 minutes. All right, welcome back, everyone. Okay, we are going to get started on the second portion of our day. We're going to finish up with these lesson components and start to talk about reading. So after they have had that warm up of previously learned vowel spellings, and then they were just introduced the oi sound, and then they were shown OI spelling for the oi sound, and they got to practice on those practice pages of their oi sound spelled with the OI. Now they get to see this oi sound in context in their decodable text. So you'll see that we have the reading component with 2 segments of introducing the story and then reading the story. So the students will learn and practice those sound spelling correspondences, and the teacher will preview those learned sound spelling correspondences that they will encounter in the text and any important vocabulary before reading the text, in order to really make sure that our students get the most opportunity for success that we can possibly give them. So then the students will read in partnerships, small groups, or in a whole group reading format. And finally, they will discuss the text. And then a lot of the time they'll have a written response to the comprehension question as well. So these lesson components here, you can see introducing the story and then reading the story. So you're going to get to watch again the teacher do this next part of the lesson. And so the reading component of the lesson, so you can take notes in your note taker again. The lesson, these lesson components are in there, page 17 and 18. Those pages these pages are page 17 and 18 in your note taker. And then these questions to look at during the watching of the video is on page 19. So we're at 17 and 18 for the lesson, and then page 19 to look at that note taker. So we're going to be really focusing when we watch the video on these questions too, and then we'll go over those. All right, here we go.
All right, boys and girls, today we're going to read a new story called The Bag of Coins. And this story is about two people who go on a trip together. If you've ever been on a trip, put your hands on your head. So these two people go on a trip together, but they find something. They actually find a bag of coins. So before we read, let's look up here. And we are going to preview some of the words in our chart. So right now, I want everybody to take a second to look at these words. I'm going to call on different people to read them. Ready? Sullivan, eyes up here, big girl. Sullivan, eyes up here. Try and read them in your brain. All right, ready? Isabel, all of these words have what sound? Ow. So what's this first word, Isabel? Found. Very good. What sound is this, Alex?
Oi.
Oi. Very nice. Let's, on the count of 3, read this word together. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Coin.
Oh, we definitely need to know how to read that word, since the title of our story is called The Bag of Coins. And we have this list of tricky words that we just need to refresh our brains. Ready? Let's read them together. Who,
That.
what, my, all. Very nice. So we're going to see these words in our reader. But before we read today's story, I want to introduce you guys into some phrases that you may have already heard before. So one phrase you're going to hear in today's story is the foot of a tree. And so when I show you this picture, this is the foot of the tree. Where are your feet on your body?
Down.
At the top of your body or at the bottom of your body? At the bottom of your body. So we're going to hear the foot of a tree, and it's talking about the bottom of a tree. I'm going to leave you with that. So our purpose for reading is to find out, when two people go on this trip, what do you think might happen when they find a bag of coins?
They're gonna keep.
Oh, I don't know. We'll have to read to find out. That's our purpose for reading. So let's go ahead and read to find out. And today, the way we're going to read is that I'm going to work with a few of you at the blue table, and then I'm going to partner you guys up. So all right, guys. So I'm going to ask you guys some questions. What does one man discover while he's on the trip with his friend? What does one man discover while he's on the trip with his friend? Go in the story and find your answer. And then I want you to look at your peanut butter and jelly partner and tell them what he finds. What does one man discover? Oh, find it in your book. And then look at your peanut butter and jelly partner, lean over, and tell him and whisper what he found. Who's your peanut butter and jelly partner? I think Sullivan is.
No, I am.
No, I think Olivia and Alex are, and you two are. There we go. No, just your peanut butter and jelly partner, like on the carpet. Not your partner. All right, go. Look at your peanut butter and jelly partner and whisper. Lean over to them and whisper and tell them what one man found. Lean and whisper. Vivian, who's your peanut butter and jelly partner? Look at him, lean over and whisper and tell him what he found. All right, very good. Okay, who wants to answer for me? Olivia.
Bag of coins.
Can you say that in a complete sentence?
They found a bag of coins.
They or one man? One man found a bag of coins.
Okay, so hopefully you noticed in there how she was asking the kids to use complete sentences, because that is the basis, the foundation for teaching writing, and for our students to learn how to write is being able to do it orally. So how how does this lesson component align with our principle that says systematic practice and reinforcement of code-related skills is necessary for building that automaticity? If I mute myself, you can come off mute and just share orally if you'd rather do that than posting in the chat, whatever works best for you. So they get to practice the reinforcement of the code-related skills and building that automaticity. Those students are practicing decoding words with that focus sound spelling pattern. And then they get to use that student reader that helps provide that spiral review that we were talking about of those previously learned spelling, sound spelling correspondences, because they're included in the text. And then this systematic practice really does have our students develop that automaticity and decoding the sound spelling correspondences, and then really getting them to reading, reading fluently and accurately and all of that good stuff that we want to see in our readers. What foundational skill are our students practicing? We have, what are they starting to practice with here? So we are using that accurate and fluent reading that the students are practicing, reading of the text within their student reader. And then we are, yes, also doing reading comprehension because they are responding to the questions after the reading and really allowing them to make meaning of this decodable text. So, and then you saw the teacher set her students up for success by reviewing those previously learned sound spelling correspondences that she knows they're going to encounter in the reader today. And then also went over some of the vocabulary to help make meaning of the text as well. And also then her materials that she was using were those student readers, which we're going to look at right now. So comparing two student reader pages, which version of the student reader would support students more in their ability to read accurately and fluently? This one over here on the left or this one over here on the right? Left or right? One for left, two for right. Which one do you think would support their accurately reading? One, awesome. Yeah, because if you notice, we have words that are bolded. And so those words that are bolded are the sound spelling correspondences that the students have learned. And so those are bolded. And then our tricky words are words that cannot be decoded using the sound spelling correspondence that they have previously learned yet, are underlined. So here the tricky words would be and the. And we'll talk more about tricky words in a little bit. Okay, so we're going to compare and really get to see the progression of student readers across grades. So the first student reader we're going to look at is in kindergarten, and kindergarten teachers, these readers don't start until unit 6. So that's, pretty far into your year, but that's when we start them. And so you'll see here that this is the first page of the last chapter in the kindergarten reader. And then this is the last student reader in kindergarten in unit 10. So what do you notice about some of those increasing complexities between the first and the last student reader? Again, you can come off mute or you can type into the chat. What do you notice? There's some pretty big differences, right? So we've got this direct picture support here in unit 6. There's more advanced. Yes, thank you. Less picture. Absolutely. So we do have that. You can see the more complex text. There are tricky words out here with these underlined U. The print, absolutely. They do, yeah, they do have the bold. You'll see that the that sound spelling correspondence that was being taught will always be bold in the student reader that's connected to that lesson. And then they'll start to have those tricky words as well. So in Unit 6, you can see the text only has short vowels, and when we get to Unit 10, we've got some long vowels. So it does, that complexity really does increase. Here is our beginning first page of the first chapter of the Unit 1 student reader for first grade. And then this is the last chapter of Unit 7 for the student reader. And so you can see that text complexity continues. And then I want you to take a look at this. What do you notice? This is the end of first grade. What do you notice here about the beginning of second grade? You see that end of first grade here to beginning of second grade. Yeah, it is more simple. And so that's because, you know, we want to acknowledge that sort of summer slump and, you know, all of that happens. And so we do kind of go back for those first unit is kind of helps with that summer brain drain, so to speak. And they are now, it's a review. And so that non-bold letters, because they're reviewing what they had previously learned in first grade to start them. But then take a look at this. And by the end of second grade, we have definitely increased that text complexity. So even though we make sure that we are supporting our students with that transition back into school in that first unit, we do not negate the text complexity as we come along. So you can see that by the end of second grade, students are looking at looking at those images and learning to read, and then moving to that reading to learn with that focus of the War of 1812 by the end of second grade. So these readers are, they're 100% decodable, but they still we keep that text complexity. And so we make sure that we have given the students all the code that they need and have helped them with memorizing their tricky word so they can access this text. Okay. So as you can see, this is our progression of our student readers from in first grade, Unit 1 to Unit 4, and then to the end, Unit 7 there. And so you'll see that there's this page at the back of your student readers. And this page really shows you exactly which sound spelling correspondences your students are going to need to be able to access the text before they read the text. And then there's also the code knowledge that is going to be added. So which ones they will learn throughout the course of the unit, they'll gradually start to see in their readers. So this is another example of why it's so important to teach it in the order that you that it shows in the book, because we want to make sure that our students are getting the code that they need in order to access the text we're putting in front of them. All right, we're going to do a quick check for understanding about these readers and our tricky words. So if we could have you go ahead and answer true or false in the chat would be awesome. So here we have, which words are underlined in the student reader? Tricky words or words that contain the focus sound spelling correspondence of the lesson? Remember whether they were, or this one isn't true or false, the next one is, if they were the underlined words are the tricky words or the sound spelling correspondence words. So the underlined words are the tricky words. Remember in first grade, by the end, it was just you. And in that first example, it was and the. So the tricky words, the words that the students do not have the code yet for, those are our tricky words, and they would be underlined. And then the bolded words are they'll bold the letters that they had just learned that sound spelling correspondence for. Okay, so true or false? No, that's okay. That's why we go over it. No worries. True or false? Student readers are 95% decodable. True or false? So remember, they are 100% decodable. We have given the students all the code they need to be able to read these books. So this is them practicing. I appreciate you going out there and doing it. Remember, these books are them practicing code that they have been taught, and giving them those tricky words is also giving them words that they the knowledge that they need to be able to access the text. So they can 100% code these books. And I mean, some of our students are going to need more support with that as they are working towards mastery, especially in the first year of implementation. But that's why that back page of your student reader is going to be so important for you as the teachers to be planning for what the students are going to need to be able to access that text. Okay, true or false? All skills strand lesson components should be taught in order. True or false? All skills strand lesson components should be taught in order. No, all the students will have the same reader, and they've all been given the code to access that text. So they are not leveled, leveled readers like that. You would pull students to a small group that might need more support from the teacher to access the text, but these are not, they are not leveled readers. This is for tier 1 instruction, and really making sure that we're giving all students the opportunity to access grade level materials for their 120 minutes, the 60 minutes of skills and the 60 minutes of the knowledge band. So the skills strand lesson components do need to be taught in order so that all the students will have been given the code to access those readers. So that is true. Okay, we are going to go ahead and turn to our other important aspect of our skills strand, spelling and tricky words. So you can use leveled readers. No, any kind of, you won't be using leveled readers with small groups during this 120 minutes. The readers are, all the students have the same reader, and it's all at grade level, going with the code that, that they were just taught. So if you're doing some type of leveled reading, that would be outside of your Texas Amplify time. That would be maybe something that it has been, is for an intervention or something like that. But there are not leveled readers in these. This small group would just be, that was the example where she said, I'm gonna have a couple of you come to the blue table with me. So then she was doing more scaffolded supports for those students to access that grade level text. And some of the other students were paired up or reading, reading independently or reading with a partner. So you as the classroom teacher know how much scaffolding your students will need and which ones are going to need more of that teacher support during that independent reading time, where they really get to apply that code knowledge, reading those their student readers. Does that answer your question? Okay, perfect. Thank you. So we're going to talk more about writing in the knowledge strand, but remember that any time that we are having our students respond to us in complete sentences, that is teaching writing. So all those components, and we'll talk more about that in a little bit. Okay, so we do talking about our spelling and tricky words. There are weekly spelling assessments in Unit 3 of first grade is when they start. And then the words that students learn for their spelling assessments in first and second grade they are directly related to the learned sound spelling correspondences. So the sound spelling correspondences that they've already learned, that's what will be on their spelling test. These will not be brand new words to them because the Amplify's approach to teaching spelling is having them practice what they've already learned, not memorizing. So when we look at how we do that, to start, they don't always follow, like when we say like the weekly list, it's not always Monday to Friday, because you might be starting a new week list on like a Tuesday or a Wednesday, just depending on how the pattern of your lessons went. So again, we want to make sure that everybody understands that the goal of the spelling portion of our curriculum is to have students practice encoding words that they already learned to decode, not to memorize. So there will be one tricky word included each week into their spelling. And so those tricky words are the words that don't follow our normal rules. So the spelling of that word will have to be memorized, but the tricky word is not going to be brand new to them. It'll already have been introduced to the student in some previous lesson, and they have seen it in context in their student reader and have been practicing it at that circle time. So it will not be a brand new word to them. So every week, our spelling list will also include those sound spelling correspondences that the students have already learned to read. So this week's sound spelling correspondences that we'll see are letter teams that make a long vowel sound. And so the first step is really the most important, and that is that teachers are going to read and write each spelling word, underlining and reviewing along with our students the focused sound spelling correspondence of that list. So this case, it is the vowel team, and then the students will then repeat the word. So for all spelling lists, this is how you will do it. So when we're introducing the word green, teachers would underline the EE and remind students that this letter team makes the E sound. And then after introducing each of our words, our teachers will ask a few students to use the word in a sentence. And then, you want to really make sure that your students have a solid understanding of the meaning of the words. And if they use the word incorrectly in a sentence, then, we take those misconceptions right away and clarify what the students are indicating they might not know. And then our final step is to provide our students with this caretaker letter, and for the caregivers to also understand that these are not words that should be written like 5 times each. They're going to be getting practice with these in their student activity books and reading them in their readers and practicing writing these words a lot, but not in a memorizing traditional way. Are there any questions before I move on about spelling? Okay. So like I was talking about earlier, in Amplify Texas, we have tricky words, and we use tricky words in our skill strand to really to identify the words that can't be sounded out using the sound spelling correspondence. So when we hear the word sight word, it is sometimes describes words that can be decoded. So these are just, we use that word to describe these common words that students see and that they should be able to have, rapidly recognize. But it also describes words that can be decoded. So in Amplify Texas, we would call them tricky words. So words that are, and same things with words, keywords are also, because they're not pronounced as expected, right? Based on the sound spelling correspondence. So words like in, at, on, and up can be decoded. So instead of teaching students just recognize them as sight words, we tell them these ones can be, well, not just we tell them, we expect the students to decode them because they know the code. And then when we introduce tricky words to students, we, as teachers, we will guide and prompt to point out which parts of the tricky words are pronounced as expected and decodable, and then the portions of the word that cannot be decoded. So looking at our Venn diagram here, in the middle of our diagram, that gray portion right here, are those traditional sight words that can't be decoded. So these would be our tricky words. And then the words on the right-hand side are those traditional sight words that can be decoded: in, at, on, the, this, did, as, and so on and so forth. And then if you look at the far left side of the Venn diagram, these words that cannot be decoded, and they are not sight words. And so these in Amplify Texas are taught as tricky words because we do have to memorize them. And then the students will see these words in the student readers. So they need to know what these words are in order to comprehend their text. But we say that these words are tricky words, and then when they're taught to them, then they become sticky words, because now these are going to be words that they are going to need to stick with them to be able to access the text. So we love our word walls as teachers. So here are some examples of making that transition with a tricky word wall rather than sight word walls. So you can see here that tricky words are on yellow and the decodable words are on green. So you can still, have all of those words up that are on those traditional lists, but just having different indicators for your students so they know which ones are decodable and which ones are the ones that they've had to memorize. So remembering just this, when we are teaching spelling and tricky words, that the spelling lists are organized by common sound spelling correspondences. These spelling lists have words with sound spelling correspondence that have been previously learned. They also have a tricky word that are not decodable using the code that the students have learned thus far. And then the students are taught to decode decodable sight words rather than memorize them. Are there any questions about our tricky words before we move on? Okay, we'll keep going. So we are now going to talk about our knowledge strand and to remember those design principles behind our knowledge strand. So as you probably remember, Amplify Texas has that two-strand approach in K-2, where we have our skills strand that primarily teaches our decoding, and then our knowledge strand that focuses on that listening comprehension. And so you will do your 60 minutes per day with your knowledge strand, just as you do with your skills. Our knowledge strand was based on this research called the baseball study. And so I'm not sure if any of you have already heard of the baseball study or not, but this was a research study where they were, it's a research study that's cited for the compelling proof of how important background knowledge is in students' reading comprehension. So what the researchers did to determine students' reading ability was they gave them a standardized reading assessment, and then they gave the students a pretest that was read orally by their teacher to assess their level of background knowledge about baseball. And then finally, the students were told to silently read a passage about baseball and respond to the questions on the text. So what is so amazing, I mean, you can probably predict that the students with high reading ability and high knowledge of baseball scored the highest. And then students with low reading ability and low knowledge of baseball scored the lowest. So that's pretty, like, that's a pretty obvious one. The most interesting thing about this, though, is that the students with low reading ability and high knowledge of baseball outperform the students with high reading ability and low knowledge of baseball. So those readers with low ability but high knowledge, they had the context to understand what was happening. You know, for instance, when it says that a player sacrificed another player to second, they knew that that meant that the player was now in scoring position and that the other player was now in the dugout. But to their peers that didn't know what those words meant, they weren't able to make those connections. So what's awesome is that we know that if we build students' background knowledge up, they can access more complex text because they have that background knowledge. And so that's what we do here throughout the Amplify Texas curriculum, is build up that student background by scaffolding those read alouds on a wide range of topics so the students can comprehend a wide variety of texts. The more background knowledge we give them in a variety of topics, the more text that they will be able to access. So it's pretty cool knowing as you're standing up there doing these read alouds that you are literally building this up for your students and giving them that opportunity to access those more complex texts. So these knowledge units throughout Amplify Texas are strategically sequenced, and they build that word and world knowledge over the course of the year and across all these multiple years. And here's this chart that shows all the units taught in grade 5. And the path in orange shows how literature connection spirals throughout the year. So in kinder, they've got those fairy tales and folk tales, fables and stories, fairy tales and tall tales, classic tales, and then we move to 4th grade into poetry, and 5th grade into that introduction of Shakespeare's A Midsummer Night's Dream. And then we do the same thing with, they're similar with a science connection. Here in kindergarten, we have Taking Care of the Earth, 1st grade, History of the Earth, 2nd grade, then we go into Cycles of Nature, 3rd, Astronomy, Geology in 4th grade, and then Chemical Matter. So as the children go through all these years, they're really going to be building up those, both the word and world knowledge that they're going to need to access these texts independently as they get into that 4th and 5th grade. This is my favorite graphic like on here. It's so simple, but when you really think about it, it's like, oh my gosh, of course. So we recognize that how important it is to develop students' listening comprehension and their ability to discuss a text to support building that background knowledge, because we know that that is what's going to give them that independent reading comprehension ability later on. So this graph shows how our students' listening and reading comprehension abilities from age 1 to 13. And you can see that students' listening comprehension and reading comprehension don't match until they're 13. And so it's, you know, like, well, we know that, you know, before age 5, they're not learning how to read. And so, you know, sometimes by when they're 7, 8, 9, we start thinking that should be more matched up, but it's really not, because they haven't been, they haven't had that time yet for their reading comprehension to connect with their listening comprehension. So we read the text orally and out loud to them so that when their reading comprehension does catch up, they'll have that background knowledge they need to comprehend the text. So students don't have a copy of the text in front of them. They're just listening to these complex texts. So in the knowledge strand, these texts are written at a text complexity that is 2 grades higher than that of the students. So this is giving them that experience of comprehending those complex texts orally before having to do it independently when they get older. So it's really important when you do those read alouds, you read the text as it is and don't paraphrase, because you really want to make sure your students are being exposed to that rigorous text, and remembering that all this content is the vehicle in which we're teaching literacy. We are not, the focus is not on the science or the social studies. It's really on what they are doing with this information. So it's really important that we don't paraphrase for those read alouds. Okay, so that is our design and approach to knowledge strand, and we're going to go ahead and dive into a unit here. So just like skills strand teacher guides, our knowledge strand teacher guides also have those unit introductions, and with awesome information in it that will help you with your planning and things like that. And so you'll see that the formatting of the knowledge unit summaries is the same as the skills unit summaries. Each unit of study also has a trade book guide that can be used for supplementing instruction, and I highly recommend looking into this. Now, these trade books don't come with the program, but they are books that your school can buy separately, but these lesson plans do come with the program. And so in your first year of implementation, your students really are going to need a lot more of that background knowledge to access these, the listening to the read alouds and doing their lessons. So it'd be a great idea to really look into those trade books, because they can build students' background knowledge of a topic, and they're engaging. So this is an optional component, but it can be very helpful for helping to build up that background knowledge and work through that unfinished learning that so many of our students have. Okay, so the goals of our first unit of our knowledge instruction are there, and then now we're going to look at each of those components of our knowledge strand lesson with teachers introducing the read aloud. So we're going to watch this abbreviated version of all of these components together, and so which will are all included in the knowledge lesson, and then we're going to reflect a bit and dive deeper into a few of those components. But we're going to watch a video here in just a minute that will showcase how the knowledge lesson progression happens. So these read aloud texts in the knowledge strand are 2 grade levels more complex, and so the entire lesson is designed to support that our students' ability to access these texts. So here in your lesson at a glance, we have the what we need to do, and so this is our grade 1 unit 10 Frontier Explorers lesson 5. And so you can go back into your note taker here and look at the lesson segments and then take your notes on as we read, presenting the read aloud and all of those components. I'm going back. So the knowledge unit introduction is on page 23. So you will see how the teacher moves through this in first introducing the read aloud. She'll introduce the read aloud and we'll ask students to talk about the previously learned information that will really help to help them understand the text from today's lesson. And then she will present the read aloud, presenting all the components, and the teacher sets that purpose for reading, which we've heard the teacher did also during the skills lesson. So you do the same thing during the knowledge, and it just guides our students, so they know what to listen for. And then they will also get more opportunity to make connections and enhance their understanding by having the comprehension discussions about the text. And it's all whole group. And so the students who are speaking and then the other students are listening, and they're really creating this, this classroom environment where everybody is learning along with each other. and supporting each other's learning. And so then you'll also see students participate in their word work, and the word brave is their vocabulary word that you'll see how we do that key vocabulary. And so in the video, the teacher has like a printed out flip book, but now those flip books are all digital. So you just display the picture for the students while you do the read aloud, and the read aloud is in your teacher book. And then the students will just be looking at the picture. And then you'll see that they have their application activity, and that will has our students be able to show their extended learning from the read aloud, and then you'll get to see students work with the timeline in this video. And so you'll see the discussion of it, not them actually doing the application activity, but that discussion of the timeline, and then they go in and they're able to have an opportunity to apply that there. So remember that as we teach the knowledge component, we really are focusing on our primary focus objective, because that really helps us to know what questions to prioritize during those discussions, so we keep them focused on our primary objective. So we are really making sure that in our read aloud that we are supporting our students' listening comprehension skills that are so critical to building their reading comprehension later on, and that we remember that this curriculum is systematically builds knowledge across the grades, and that these lessons are structured to support all of our students in comprehending a read aloud that is written that like I said, grade levels higher. So we definitely have the rigor. Okay, so we're gonna watch how this lesson progresses through the knowledge lesson.
Before we move on to today's lesson, let's recall and remember what we talked about on yesterday. Now, when we got to lesson 4 on yesterday, we had already acquired the Louisiana Territory. Yes? Yes. Okay. Now, our president at the time of this story, who was that president? Jared.
Thomas Jefferson.
Thomas Jefferson wants this young man to go someplace. Who is this young man, and where does the president of that time want him to go? Jeremy, in a complete sentence.
James Monroe is
The young man.
the young man that Thomas Jefferson asked
Asked to do what, darling?
to go to France
And why is he going to France?
to meet Napoleon
Okay, Napoleon
Bonaparte.
Awesome. Now, who else can tell me why he's going there to meet with Napoleon Bonaparte? Jaden?
He's going to meet with Napoleon Bonaparte because Thomas Jefferson wants to buy the New Orleans so that he could go up and down the Mississippi River.
Yes. He wants to purchase New Orleans so we can go up and down the Mississippi River. Because he's afraid if what? What is he afraid of? Terrell, what is he afraid of?
He's afraid of Thomas Jefferson.
Nah, do we agree or disagree? Who can help him out? What is he afraid of? Jared?
He's afraid of if Napoleon Bonaparte gets mad because he wouldn't let Thomas Jefferson pass through the Mississippi River to go to New Orleans.
Awesome. Amari, can you show us Louisiana Territory? Okay, and who can more specifically tell me what the Louisiana Territory is between? It's between what? Jared?
The Louisiana Territory is between the Mississippi River and Rocky Mountains.
Give your brains a kiss, boys and girls. Awesome, awesome, awesome. We learned last time about the Louisiana Purchase, when the United States government purchased the Louisiana Territory from France. Once the purchase of the Louisiana Territory was complete, President Thomas Jefferson wanted to send explorers to make maps of his new land and learn more about it. Thinking about the Louisiana Territory, Jefferson wondered, is it possible that there are tigers or elephants living out there in those unexplored western lands? No one has explored enough to really know. Perhaps there are plants whose leaves could be used as medicines to help sick people, or which would be delicious to eat. My Native American friends who live there have brought me a few plants to study, but I am sure there must be more plants and animals which even they have not seen. Jefferson prepared to send explorers into the Louisiana Territory. I need the leader of those explorers to be someone who I can trust, someone very brave and very smart. Why did Jefferson want someone to explore the territory? Turn and talk real quick. Talk to the person sitting next to you. Who'd like to answer out? Anna?
Because he wanted to know what the new land was like.
Because he wanted to know what the new land was like. Awesome. Are we ready to move on?
Yes.
Okay. President Jefferson suddenly smiled. Why? I know the person for the job. He sat down and wrote a letter to his former assistant, a man named Meriwether Lewis. Jefferson asked Meriwether Lewis if he would lead the team of explorers. Okay, again, we're going to do a quick turn and talk. What were the 3 tasks that President Jefferson wanted completed? Turn and talk. Turn and discuss all 3, darling. Okay, are we ready?
Yes.
Okay. Who would like to share out? Greg Heath Jr.
To find a water route.
I need a complete sentence. One of the tasks.
One of the tasks was to find a water route.
A water route, all water route where, darling? Who can help him out? Jeremy?
To the Pacific Ocean.
Okay, but can I get a complete sentence?
One of the 3 tasks was to find an all-water route to the Pacific Ocean.
Awesome. Who can give me another task? Mary Ellis?
One of the tasks was to be friendly with Native Americans.
And who can give me the last task?
Plants.
Think about it. We're supposed to think before we raise our hands to speak. Do you need some help?
Yes.
Okay, Zanira, can you help him out?
The task was to
We said we were looking for an all-water route to the Pacific Ocean. We already said to be friends with the Native Americans. What was the 3rd task? To find samples of plants and animals. Awesome. Give your brains a kick. Okay, I'm going to give you 2 minutes to discuss it. And the question is, why were these 3 tasks important to the United States? Why do you think these 3 tasks were important to the United States? Now turn and talk.
Why these 3 tasks were important to the United States? These 3 tasks was important to the United States was because if they found the all-water route to the Pacific Ocean, people can travel to different islands, and if you take samples of plants and animals,
I think the most important part of the 3 important tasks were that they're going to help us know about our new land.
I think the most important task was
Not the most important task. What is so important about the 3 tasks.
Okay, are we ready to share out?
Yes!
Okay, who'd like to share out? Who'd like to share out? Serenity, who's your partner? Please stand up with your partner. Okay, which task did you think was important and why?
I think getting samples of plants and animals was the most important task because if we didn't know that, we wouldn't know what kind of animals were out there.
Okay, what task did you feel was most important?
We think that making friends with the Native Americans was the most important
And why so?
because when they come back to their new land, they know other people that are there.
Who can tell me something about the timeline? How does it work? In what order does it go? Who can tell me something about the timeline? Kasana, in a complete sentence, darling.
About the timeline is that it goes in the order that it happens.
It goes in the order that events have happened. Guys, give your brains another kiss. You rock first grade. Okay, so we're gonna look at our timeline. Who were the first people of North America? Who were the first people? Terrell, you wanna try? Okay, Terrell, who were the first people of North America?
The first people in North America was
I'll give him a chance.
a Native American.
Awesome, the Native Americans. Okay, and next on our timeline, we see a young man. Who knows who this young man is?
Daniel Boone.
Okay, and who can tell me something about Daniel Boone? What do we know about Daniel Boone? Mary Ellen?
Daniel Boone was a woodsman.
He's a woodsman. What else do we know about Daniel Boone? Carolyn?
He was brave.
He was brave. What else do we know about Daniel Boone? Jeremy?
He was adventurous.
He was adventurous. Serenity?
Daniel Boone crossed the Appalachian Mountains to the west.
Right. Yes, Daniel Boone crossed the Appalachian Mountains to the west. In the read aloud, you heard Jefferson say, I need the leader of these explorers to be someone I can trust. Someone very brave. Do this for me. Someone very brave and very smart. Say the word brave.
Brave.
When someone is brave, it means he or she shows courage and does something even if it may be dangerous or frightening. Tanya was brave when she decided to learn to swim, even though she was afraid of water. Can you think of a time when you or someone you know was brave? Think about it first, because remember, we think before we raise our hands to speak. Think about it. Think about it. Give yourselves a few seconds. Put your hands down. Think about it. Give yourselves a few seconds. Now, are we ready?
Yes.
Okay. Now, you know I'm only going to pick 3 because we take turns with our
Friends.
Awesome. Okay, I need a sentence. I was brave when. It could be you or someone else. Or my mom was brave when. Zavette?
I was brave when I was getting my shots.
Yeah, shots do hurt. They do. Okay, who else can use it in a sentence? Kasana?
My mom was brave when she shoot the spider away.
Awesome. Spiders can be scary. Jaden?
I was brave when I flipped off the ladder into the pool.
Okay, and what's that word we've been talking about?
Brave.
We take turns with our friends, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. Okay, who'd like to share out? We're gonna first talk about what you felt was the easiest task to accomplish. What do you think was the easiest task? And remember, it's your personal opinion. Okay? Anna, what do you think was the easiest task?
I think fighting an all-water route to the Pacific Ocean was the easiest task.
Okay. Who else? Does somebody think that there was another task that was the easiest? Jeremy?
The easiest task is to take samples of plants and animals.
Okay, would you like to tell me why you drew that conclusion? Why do you think that was the easiest task?
Because all you have to do is write it.
Jared, what do you think the easiest task was?
I think to make friends with was the easiest task.
To make friends with who? You left out a part, darling.
I think to make friends with the Native Americans was the easiest task.
And why?
Because all you have to do is just make friends with them, give them gifts, and then you just leave and do one of the other tasks.
I love that last comment that he makes. It's so easy to make friends. You just give them gifts and then you can do all the rest of your things you have to get done. So cute. Okay, I know we are coming to the end of our day. And so just a few things to remember when introducing that read aloud lesson, that we are introducing that read aloud, and those lesson components set our students up for success by activating our students' background knowledge and providing that essential background information and vocabulary needed to comprehend the text. And then they need to read the text as written. As a teacher, we read the text as written quickly, paced to keep our students' attention and engagement. We use a variety of discussion techniques and comprehension questions, and those questions are embedded in the lesson. There's so many for you to choose from that it's great. And then this is when you can add in that realia, costumes, artifacts, and really add that like your teacher flair of engagement to it. And remember that our goal in all of this is exposing our students to new content. They're not expected to master this content after just hearing a text one time, and we're building that understanding in them through multiple texts. So these comprehension questions, remember they are intended to aid our students in their comprehension of the key components of the text. And we use a variety of student engagement strategies to increase our students' student to student discourse during the discussion with like those think, pair, share, small group discussions, the kinesthetic responses of like, using body language to represent the word brave, and then including a variety of those literal, inferential, and evaluative questions. So remembering our word work, this is our opportunity for students to practice the correct use of our key vocabulary words. They get to experience that gradual release during the lesson. They were learning the meaning of the word, hear it, use it in a sentence before practicing independently. And then doing the movement with that word work, so they get to kind of move around, not sit in one spot. And then our application activity, this allows our students to sort of synthesize and extend and apply what they've learned during our read aloud and comprehension discussions using those various activities, including writing, drawing, acting things out. And then it's also good to remember that these activities sometimes build off of one another. So they might add to a journal entry that they had already started. So we're gonna just take a quick look at where you can find these recorded read alouds for you to, so the goal is for Amplify is for teachers to do the read alouds, but sometimes when a student is absent, you can pull up this video for them to see. And remember, when you do use them, that you're going to need to pause in between and ask those clarifying comprehension questions.
I wanted to take a minute to remind you where to access the knowledge recorded read alouds for your knowledge lessons. Again, I'm going to go to my.amplify.com. This is where I access all of my curriculum materials. Once I use my username and login to access the website, I'm going to click on the K-5 Elementary Literacy Program. And from here, I can choose the tab at the top for daily instruction, which is where all of my materials are located. So once I click on that tab again, I can choose which grade level materials I want to access. Kindergarten, first grade, and second grade have these recorded read alouds to use during your knowledge lessons. I'm going to click on the first grade curriculum as an example, and then I'm going to go over to the knowledge domain so I can access those materials. I'm going to do the human body domain, which is unit 2 within the first grade curriculum. Once I click on that, I can scroll down through all of the materials included for this domain, as well as some additional materials, the trade book guide for this domain, and then I come down to the portion where the read aloud videos live. As you can see, I can click directly on this picture, and the first lesson in this domain, the recorded read aloud, will play. But if you hover over to the side, you'll see the playlist for this particular domain. Again, there's a recorded read aloud video for each lesson within your knowledge domain, and I can simply scroll down, choose which lesson I am on, and then I can play that video.
Did you know that doctors have heroes? I'm going to tell you about two of my heroes.
So again, these videos include the flipbook images that are part of your materials as well.
Okay, those are a great resource. So our knowledge lesson components, we're gonna get through this. True or false, teachers should preview the read aloud text by walking through the pictures and giving a summary of each page. False, we don't do the picture walks. We want to keep the rigor for our students. So true or false, teachers should paraphrase the text of the read aloud if students are struggling with comprehension so students can learn the content. Again, false, right? Students can orally comprehend at a much higher level than reading comprehension in those early grades, and these texts are written at a higher level, and so we want to keep help our students build their knowledge over the course of the unit. True or false, teachers must ask every comprehension question listed in the lesson. No, there's a lot, but you don't have to. If you have time and you can, awesome, but that's not a requirement. True or false, application activities have different objectives than read alouds. True, because these application activities have their own objectives that will help students to synthesize and extend that learning from the read alouds. They might transition from a speaking and listening standard to a writing standard of something that is they're using to synthesize. So looking at the writing quickly, we know that in order to have proficient writers, they need to have their receptive and expressive language developed, their language conventions, content and background knowledge, and reading all developed, because we know that those are all very closely linked. And you'll notice in the Texas Amplify Texas curriculum, there is definitely an emphasis on quality before quantity. And so in this curriculum, we do take the time to build up those foundations of writing so that when those more formal writing pieces come up, the students have those foundations necessary to be able to produce those high quality writing. We also have assessments, which we've talked about throughout this time, but just real quickly for you in the skills strand, we do have those observations, checking for understanding, activity book pages, end of unit assessments and benchmarks. And then we also have those observations, checking for understanding, activity book pages, application activities. We have those pausing points and domain assessments in our knowledge strand. We have all of them here. and you can see where the assessments are laid out for you in the contents, the lesson overview, and within the lesson, like we've looked at throughout our day together today. So we've got those observations, formative assessments, and whatnot. In closing, I do want to say just thank you so much for your time today. If you do want to, join the Facebook pages, you can search for Science of Reading the Community and find that group on Facebook. And there's real teachers all sharing information and things like that, and just getting to really build up your background knowledge in why you're teaching the way that you are through this curriculum. So before you log off, if you could please either type in this URL, or using your smartphone, you can put your camera on, and then put a link will pop up on your smartphone, and you can take that survey if you could do that now before logging off. And this is the half-day Texas, Amplify Texas program. And then I just wanted to say thank you to all of you, and remind you all to give yourselves some grace as you go on this adventure of learning a new curriculum, and know that you are such a gift to your students, and diving deep into this is just the best gift you will ever give them. And so I just want to thank you for your time this afternoon and everything. And please feel free to email me here at mbuser@amplify.com, and I'm happy to answer any of your questions. This was a lot of information in a short amount of time. So I just wanted to thank you all for your participation.